Okay, so welcome everyone to this kind of hybrid online session for Juxtaposition, our bi-weekly series of talks on perspectives on contemporary cultural production. And today we have a very special guest and a very, very dear friend, Ahmet Öğüt, who is speaking to us from Istanbul. We planned originally to be both in Berlin. I am in Berlin. Ahmet was supposed to be in Berlin as well, but due to some other obligations, Ahmet is now in Istanbul. However, before we start, thank you for those that actually are still in the room now at the Hardenbergstraße, and welcome to everyone who's joining us online. So how did we meet, Ahmet? Let me briefly introduce you. So Ahmet is an amazing conceptual artist that I deeply admire, who I've started to kind of follow his work, yes, through a book that I worked on in 2009 that Ahmet just pulled up to the screen, that looked at kind of artistic interventions in urban space. And we had just the email contact, 2 or 3 projects of Ahmet ended up in the book. And then a couple of years later, in 2012, I was curating a festival in Rotterdam and I was trying to get Ahmet on board, but he was busy and it didn't really work out. But then in the winter of 2016, we were introduced to a common friend, and a year later, we collaborated on an educational experiment that I was running in Amsterdam at the Sandberg Institute with a Master of Fine Arts program called Radical Cut Up, where Ahmet joined as a kind of guest teacher over the course of this project. And we've become very good friends ever since. But to biographically quickly introduce you, Ahmet, you were born in Silvan in Diyarbakır. Your work spans kind of all media, you could say, and you have exhibited in numerous solo exhibitions, many group exhibitions, and all kinds of biennales. You co-represented Turkey also at the 53rd Venice Biennial. You've won a lot of prizes, and your work is also in numerous collections. I don't need to name drop them, but what made me very much kind of fall in love with your work is this combination of a highly conceptual approach, like really thinking through or starting with thinking, always with a political sense and always with humor. There's always like a tongue-in-cheek kind of moment in the work that you kind of through humor or kind of through a kind of cracked smile, you actually enter into a highly political terrain with your work. And I think that's really ingenious and a great inspiration also for all the kind of students or listeners here, how one translates ideas or concepts, even theories, into tangible artworks, whether they're installations or whether they're paintings, but it's always at the end a tangible work that we're dealing with in your case. And so I'm extremely thrilled that we have the opportunity kind of to listen to your talk and kind of learn a little bit about your own development as an artist. So that said, I'll pass the mic to you, Ahmet, and thank you so much for being here. A virtual applause.
Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, everyone, also the ones present in that room and online. Happy to be your guest. Sometimes you are my guest, sometimes I'm your guest. Last month you were my guest in Istanbul. And I like this exchange we have since many years, especially the times in Amsterdam with Radical Cut Up. It was such a special master program, and I'm happy and I feel lucky that I was part of it. Today is going to be simple or complex. I'm going to give you very much like I will just like behave or think that you don't know anything about my work, and I will just give you an overview about my practice. Usually I start from the very, very early works and come up till today, but today I'm going to do a little bit mix and start with some of latest projects, and yeah, give you the feeling about where is the humor in my practice, where is the commitment, long-term engagement, lifetime engagements, or these other aspects like gestures in public spaces and quick gestures, and how I connect all those activities based on the ideas, basically, as a conceptual artist. Let's share the screen, and feel free to ask questions also during the presentation. Let's try to make this online experience as interactive as possible. Let's go to Keynote here. Yeah. Do you see it full screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let me go to... Interesting. I need to stop. Now I could have moved the slides one more time. Make you notice here. One more time. Okay, so yeah. Do you see this changing slides? Yeah.
Yes, we do.
So I want to start with this recent project, which is Lifetime. I have a couple of ideas that requires me to engage with them Lifetime, and this is one of them. This one is inspired from Onkavara, and every day, every morning, I measure my heartbeat, and I make a NIF certificate. It's something between an organ donation certificate and artwork certificate, and it has to be updated every day. So right now it's in a show in Venice. I'm going back there tomorrow, actually, and also in another show in Trento, so in 2 shows in Italy. So they have to kind of update this work every day. And the idea is that if I die that day, my heart, if technically possible, depends on technicalities and the distance, should be donated to Al-Shifa Hospital. And right now also that hospital is not really functioning, but hopefully in the future I will be still alive and the hospital will still function. And this still, as a kind of performativity of the conceptual idea, will happen as a sort of afterlife concept. So as an artist, I think a lot about afterlife as well in my practice. You can see the 2 different displays, but basically it's based on this everyday certificates, as Onkavara did also when he was alive, every day as a painting, the date of the date what became the painting, and the title was "I am still alive" in his work, and in mine, "I'm still alive yet." Another special project to me, actually, because I'm talking about myself as a conceptual artist, but my training was very traditional painting. And most people in the art world don't know I do paint, because I did not paint during my professional career. I worked with ideas, and there was no idea over 20 years that fits this medium. Yet I work with many, many different, all kinds of mediums. And last year, I returned for that specific project to make oil paintings, and they're specifically portraits of artists at the verge of burnout. And I have 2 conceptual rules, actually several. It's very interesting to return painting, even for this one project, as a conceptual artist who studied traditional painting, in Turkey, to have these rules. Because if I actually did painting after I graduated from art school, I wouldn't have such strong conceptual rules. One of the main rules is these works are offline. So what you see on the screen is not the work itself. They're actually in the room with me. I have some of them made in Istanbul and in Berlin and in New York over last year. And I still continue to make more of them. And so it's very hard these days to keep a work offline. So It's very interesting for me to experience that, and also make a work from beginning till end by myself. You know, even though people know me as conceptual artist and they don't really believe I make these paintings myself, but for me, this information is very important, that I am involved in the entire process and it's not done from the distance. So after all those, especially recent years during the COVID times, you know, everything becoming online, and right now this talk is even online and even recorded, and online and recorded talk makes it impossible to share with you these paintings. On the other hand, if you are if I'm around and if you are in the town where I live, where I can show you the paintings, it also becomes very easy to experience these paintings like Lucas did experience in Istanbul and in Berlin, but not yet the ones in New York. And here you can see the list of artists. The other two conceptual rules, that every single artist should be from a different town, different city around the world. And I tried to create some sort of like utopic art scene, basically kind of equally distributed, especially to the global south, and they can choose whatever medium they want, you know, no matter if the economy or the facilities, whatever, doesn't allow them from, you know, the political and social conditions to choose any random artistic medium. For me, it's an interesting exercise to imagine those artists, and I also encounter some of them after making those semi-fictional portraits, because some of them are based on real artists, but they are not the portraits of those artists. Some the artists that I will meet in the future. Not me, I haven't met them yet. Maybe I haven't been in those cities or countries yet. So this makes it quite exciting as a personal experience, but also exciting for the others have a personal experience when they encounter me, to be able to see these paintings in person. We can talk more about it, but what you see is the censored, blurred image of a portrait, one of the portraits here. Going back to my interaction with collections and other artists' works, because I have this, one could say maybe a curatorial practice within my artistic practice in several works, and I do enjoy inviting the collections of museums back to the life. If we think the storages of the museums and collections are actually somehow mostly preserved as kind of graveyards, to be activated, you know, to be put on display. I conceptually, creatively think a lot about how this displays can be done in a performative way. And this was first tested, this project was, it's called Jump Up. It's a very simple project. It was first tested in Skopje in a museum which was designed to become the largest museum representing Yugoslavia, but yet the country does not exist anymore, but the museum is still there. But it was designed as to become, you know, in the center of Yugoslavia. But this country right now, North Macedonia, is a country since a couple of years only, have a new fresh name, and Skopje is this town, doesn't have such budget or scale to preserve, to sustain such a large museum that comes with that kind of, you know, like image. So it has like leaking ceiling, and they have incredible collection, which mostly donations by the artists after the earthquake at the end of 60s. But now preserving them is the hardest job, or the museum, you know, like really fixing the ceiling of the museum. So for me, this was very interesting conception of a museum, also not a typical one that we imagine museum is a solid, strong space that has all the facilities and, you know, even the climate control for the artworks and everything, protection is already reserved and preserved and, you know, protected. But if you go to a museum like that, you need to be part of that process, you know, as an artist, as an audience. So for me, referring those donated artworks because of natural disaster back in the days in a country that did exist but not exist anymore because also political disasters as well. So very interesting context for me to work in, and I wanted to make this work not like dramatic but bringing more humor and joy. You know, if you think of the earthquake phenomena, not to create more trauma for people, but it's really this joyful experience to see the artwork in the eye level, but the artwork is not adjusting itself to the humankind, but humankind have to adjust themselves to the artwork. So they have to jump to eye level to see the work in the eye level. Go back to the standards museum eye level standards. Here, a different version of the work I did in a space in Berlin in collaboration with MBK at the time, with a couple of works with by Boris Mikhailov, Julieta Aranda, and Valley Export in this work, borrowed artworks in this version. And going back to performance, coming to my work back and forth as well, like I started with performances that I perform myself. And recently I also have a return to that in Amsterdam a few weeks ago. But also I collaborate with others a lot. So here it's a project called Balance Protest Banners in Bangladesh. I did the version, and I did another version in Riga. And what is very interesting, the concept is exactly the same, but we use bamboo in Bangladesh, and we used another kind of wood in Riga, and they had the same tradition that a lot of people go on this walking sticks, and they have games, and we develop completely different part of the world. But actually, I'm curious to adjust this work in even more countries, different countries, to see combined with the images you can see on top, that they are the things that are very hard to find and very easy to find. So here you can see very hard to find things in Bangladesh, in Dhaka. But when you go to Riga, we have other things hard to find. And most of the time, this fruits or goods, or even like basic things, that they are the reasons they are hard to find because of the recent wars or other international politics that are involved. So even if you think of everyday objects, everyday goods, still it's linked to global ups and downs and back and forths and global economy as well. That's you can watch online. There's a video documentation of this action. We did an illegal performance action and stopped by the undercover police there, as usual in my works, that I usually try not to get permissions for them. Let's go to talking about online offline situation in my work. This is another work that completely got inspired from internet search engine. Basically, like if you search the two words appointed curators, these are the first images comes that most people, that when they are appointed to especially an art institution, they give this posture. And when I Googled appointed curators, I only checked the first two page. I didn't have to go so deeper research, and almost all the photos had this poster. So I just cropped the posters of those directors. I know actually some of those curators in person, but that was like whatever comes first, and I collaged them together. And then it became a meme, and it became also kind of like this kind of works travel faster online, especially. And some of the curators, when they appointed after this project, they start giving different kind of postures that start posing differently, and some of them refer to this work as well. So it was very interesting that when I was doing, I was just like, I spotted this thing happening. It was like always there, something like a little bit disturbing, because it's like showing maybe they think it's showing the power and confidence and so on, but this kind of body language actually means that this person is insecure and doesn't want to interact with the outside world, opposite to what a museum institution director should do in terms of the dialogue they should have with the audience. Another work I can quickly mention is this monoliths. Earlier I made another version, but this version is became permanent sculpture at the garden of a factory, and it was built by the factory workers that worked with coil. And I wanted to bring this mysterious monolith from Stanley Kubrick's movie, you know, that they also appear, this mysterious monolith, this kind of phenomena appears all around the world still, that it's like alien-made sculpture and no one knows exactly what's the function of it and so on. I just wanted to rethink the conception of minimalist sculptures and still have to think it in a context of interactivity. So it is basically painted with heat-sensitive thermochromic ink. So with the movement of the sun or the climate that day, the work changes color. So it's completely black, and when it's a sunny day, it gets complete chrome, and in between, it's transformed. So all day long, it changes color, and also it changes color with the body heat. So during the lunch break, all the workers, around 300 of them, they can go back to the sculpture and change the color by touching it or by, you know, spending time around it. And so this is somehow activating that mystery into like everyday life and the labor basically also. Another collaboration is like, because I work with a lot of non-artists as collaborators, which is a lot of fun. So I recommend that to everyone, every artist. Not only work with other artists, but definitely it's fun to work with people who are, in this case, were firefighters. And I was, I had this idea, and it took me some time. I didn't even know which country it will happen, but eventually it happened in Finland. And I worked with the fire department there. And the idea was that, you know, the inspiration was from the dystopian novel and the film Fahrenheit 451. And in the movie and in the novel, people, the firefighters, they go around and burn the books because reading books in this dystopian future is illegal. And they go find all the books and burn them and destroy them. And I thought maybe in my version, the firefighters can print the books, but they have to learn how to print books. So I explained them the idea, talked about the movie, and we worked with an underground publisher, and they're very organized people. So they know how to work as a team. So many artists don't know how to do that, but when you think of firefighters, they're very practical, very fast responding, and they can learn very fast, and they can work together in very organized way in very short time. So it was very interesting experience to work with them. And in a couple of days, they learned how to make like very analog style print books. So we replaced the other tools in the fire truck with printing machine, folding machine, glue machine, and all that. And they learned very fast, and they were able to print 1,500 copies of all these books that I listed and scanned together with this underground publisher. And they were art books. No, they were books. Basically, they were censored because of really random reasons, not obvious reasons, from all around the world. From the last century. You can see it. Sometimes they deliver the books through the window as well to the people. Okay, let me check the time. I'll just keep going. If anybody has
keep going, Ahmet.
Yeah, if anybody has questions, please stop me. This is another key work representing my practice of working with the collections. In 2005, this is one of the most recent versions of Bakunin's Barricade. Maybe I can go to the earliest. This is the first version. So Bakunin's Barricade is, maybe some of you know about this project. It's actually very interesting how it becomes life again, because I like this circle of artworks becoming artworks and then returning to life and then becoming artworks again, and this goes on and on. And in this work, that was the idea as well. Like I got inspired by Bakunin's idea in 1849 in Dresden, proposing his friends when they were making the very first barricades. You know, they were inventing the barricades at the time. He said, let's go get some original artworks, paintings from the National Museum, put in front of the barricades. So when the army arrives, they will not dare to destroy this barricade because they will see the original expensive artworks, heritage on top of it. His friends doesn't take this serious, and this becomes this never realized conceptual proposal by the founder of anarchism. Until in 2015, I proposed this to the Van Abbemuseum in Eindhoven in Netherlands, and they're like, why not? Let's do it. But I said, it's not only about we just create a barricade in the museum, but we also, I want to work with the, which was already hard, you know, to get original Picasso, Leger, or Marlene Dumas, hang it on this bunch of junk and, you know, broken glass and stones and tires and police fence. But also we need to make sure in the future, if this work, if it happens to become part of the museum collection, how it could be returned to the public when there is an uprising in that country. So I worked with the lawyer of the museum. First, we drafted this conceptual contract. So what you don't see in the installation image, that it's on the side wall, usually together with the installation. So you can read every detail of that contract, describing that in case museum acquire this piece, they are responsible in the future when there's an uprising against basic human rights in that country. And large uprising, people actually can go request the work from the museum. And if museum refuse to give the work, they need to give a penalty, which is a public statement explaining why ethically they don't agree to give this work back to the people. And so all the responsibility is not carried by the artist, but then by the museum when a situation like that, which already happened actually just some weeks ago. Maybe this is recorded, so I can't talk about it yet, but it might be happening somewhere, and so on. Eventually, the work was one version was sold to one of the museums, and this museum have to respond when the situation like that happens. You know, if they agree to return. This is the American version. You can see two Kiki Smith works from the collection in Oberlin. There is Barbara Kruger here and a few others. You can see Baldessari. This is the one in Cologne at the Ludwig Museum, and so on. As in Copenhagen, and eventually we did one in Dresden, a smaller one, actually. So the story will return back to the origin with the collection assembled from private collectors based in Dresden. This is the one in Istanbul. Okay, this is a project about student debt issue in US, but maybe should I skip it? I have to check the time situation now. This is another long story, but I'm gonna maybe skip this one today. If it comes back during the Q&A, I'm happy to tell about it. It's an interesting work. Soon I'm gonna do a different version, but this was in 2016 in Istanbul. There was a new institution opening, and I decided to collect all the signs of art institutions from the last 20 years in Istanbul and in Turkey, if you can find the original ones, that all the closed institution signs we can put on one wall. They could be private gallery or you know, non-profit space or artist collective space or a museum and so on. And strangely, we found actually a lot of original signs, and people were very happy to give us. We reproduced some of them. They gave us the instructions, and you know, according to the original sign. And I had this one wall of memory of the recent past of Istanbul art scene, where basically like most of those institutions were very key institutions. And they closed down, but their impact continues. Some of them transform into some other institutions. Some of the venues are transformed into some other institutions. But the people who worked in the spaces, they are still around. So if you were an intern or assistant or director or installer or exhibited artist in one of those institutions, you might happen to come to this opening. That's exactly what happened, actually. It was such an amazing opening when we did, because of the conversations, everybody knew about the project and they all wanted to come see it as well. You know, this memory of the of maybe very much the beginning of their artistic life and all that. And even though it looks like a graveyard, this work, you know, all the past institutions, it was very much alive with the people when they all showed up at the opening. Right now, I'm doing another version with the closed clubs, night culture of Istanbul. Actually, very soon we will open in a new venue, night venue that has an art space. And that will be very interesting to see that also people also coming back and meeting each other again. Going back to completely digital works, and this was the 2 years ago, I think by now, 1.5, 2 years ago, a project I made. This was my first AR project, which made a lot of sense because I wanted to make monuments of people who would not be possible to get permission from the government to get these monuments actually installed. They are whistleblowers globally, so they basically expose a lot of military or government secrets for the good of the public. And whistleblowers actually are protected people because they risk their own job, their own life, and they share this information. It's sometimes the consequences are quite massive. They really risk their lives and so on. But usually they bring positive change to the policy making and the future of those institutions. And so what they do is very positive eventually. Yet, if they are the first people doing it, they put themselves in very much in danger. And the idea was to have this floating monuments with these pedestals, actually are real pedestals, like kind of like showing up in different public spaces around the world. Just with this QR code, people could place them even in almost impossible places like Beijing in China during the protests, or you know, in front of the Chinese embassy, or you know, in Europe, in US, and all kinds of places. In Istanbul, people place them in many different places. You can see. This is a performance piece. I don't know if I do this, are you gonna see the moving screens? Do you see it?
Yeah, we see it.
Yes.
Okay, great. I sometimes feel I'm all alone here, so good to hear your voice. I did this performance twice. I sometimes, you know, I'm not so much in the art fair context, but sometimes they ask me to do special projects for the art fairs. So the first version of this project was done in an art fair. They asked me if I can do a project, and I said, okay, I would like to invent a job that does not exist. So instead of inspired from basically the science spinners in LA, a lot of very low paid Hispanic background people are unfortunately doing this job in LA, which is for me completely strange, but they basically spin signs instead of putting the signs there, advertise the neighborhood businesses and so on. And then they got really skilled with this sign spinning, and some of them, and they got even, well known. But I was interested with this action of spinning the signs, spinning the advertisement. So instead, I wanted to reverse the situation, the lowest paid workers. Instead of that, I wanted to turn them into highest paid performers. So I asked the art fair that I have this idea that people will, performers will spin the monitors showing these movies, but they will be paid as much as the fair director, art fair director, and they will have the same access to every VIP possibility in the fair, VIP car service to VIP areas and everything. And the hourly payment will be fixed, matching the director of the art fair. This is the second version, which we did in a non-profit space in Berlin back then and a few years ago, and we matched the hourly payment of the performance to the basically the member of parliament, hourly payment of member of parliament. Another project in very similar context, maybe before that, I did in 2013 Art Dubai to create a VIP lounge only for interns. And in Art Dubai, there was when they asked me what I want to do, again in an art fair context, I wanted to think of something that does not exist before. So they have many VIP lounges and they all have hierarchies in between them. And I thought, why don't we make another VIP lounge? And I asked them, they had interns and all the interns were unpaid. So, and they had no space to hang out. So I decided to dedicate this art space to the interns, and only they will be allowed, and the other people I ask to come and give talks to them, they will have access to see the space. Otherwise, no one else in the art fair, like the collectors or galleries or other artists, they cannot enter the space. So the space existed in this as a rumor, first of all, for most people, because they couldn't even enter. But we did really have like not only an education program in there, like screening program about work and labor and office spaces, but also really like relaxing place that they can have fun, like play table tennis or chocolate fountain or massage service or things like that. That was really existing in this VIP lounge. So it quickly became a legend in the fair. This is another version I did in the museum context. So sometimes things travel from art fair to museum to non-profit to the public space back to the art institution. And this is in Pompidou, the same project happened. And we created a space this time, not only for 3 days, but for 3 months. And anyone interning in Paris can sign up and free to use this space with other interns and also other artists and activists who deal with this issues. There was a collective called Precarious Generation. They also got involved and really activated the space for all these 3 months. All the paintings you see on the walls, they are never exhibited artworks from the collection of Pompidou. Even the curator had no idea that those works existed. So I thought it would be fun to hang on the wall never existed artworks. It's a kind of one of other gesture from me dealing with the collections of the institutions. This is a fun project. Basically, like as I told earlier, I work with a lot of people who are not artists. And one day I decided, after 10 years of my practice, I was asked to do a solo show at Chisenhale Gallery in London. And I told them, this time I want to invite the people, not the artworks. So it should be a retrospective of people that I work with. And I agree with this crazy idea. So I brought a lot of people. Some of them I didn't, I worked only once, like 8 years before this or a few years before this, that we never had, we just had like one-time collaboration. Some of them I had ongoing collaborations. So I had, let me think, I had a sportcaster, one of the firefighters came, and from Helsinki, sportcaster came from Istanbul. From Liverpool, I had a stuntman, a lip reader, from Istanbul, and from Amsterdam, a mixologist, a hairdresser from Berlin, Alex came, and who else was there? There was a few other people, and they all like agreed as if it's a group show, and they're invited as an artist, you know. So the idea was that I will be there, and I would be with the audience, and I cannot ask questions or comment. So they can say anything they want about every project we did together, and they can reveal all the secrets or the storytelling that I always make this, you know, in presentations, that maybe I skip some of the details that I don't tell everyone because it's nicer for the storytelling, and they are happy, they are free to reveal any of those parts, and they were provoked by one of the academician, Andrea Phillips, at the time. So it was a fun recorded TV program-like event, bringing people together. Checking time again. Is it
I
for
would
the?
say, I don't know, maybe another 10 minutes or something like that, and then we can enter the Q&A.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. Like these are getting very early, early works, and this was I can very briefly pass this ones. So this work is called Explore the City. It was the one I did. It was commissioned for the Pavilion of Turkey in Venice, and I decided to bring also something from the recent memory at the time. From the last 20 years, all the buildings, they were attacked, but they were not famous before they were attacked. And even after they were not famous, they were just known in those countries. So if you're from Belfast, you would easily recognize the Europa Hotel right standing in the middle of this building, because Europa Hotel actually is the most attacked building in the history. It was attacked 33 times. And it's still standing. So some years later, I was in Belfast for a conference, and I was able to go there and have a tea in the lobby, and thinking of that, I know this building so well as a model. We did it for this project, and there are still buildings in this project that I haven't been, like the one in Colombia, or in Otesia, or in, you know, some of those buildings. I went to visit a library in Sarajevo. I know the HSBC Bank from Istanbul. You know, there is also Islamic University from Gaza. There is what else is there? The federal building, Oklahoma City. This was the biggest attack in the United States before World Trade Centers. But people know Twin Towers, but they don't, you know, a lot of people know this Oklahoma Federal Building, but it was actually the massive attack that's now under the shadow of another attack. Or Vukovar Water Tower, where the Yugoslav war started from Croatia, and anyone from Croatia recognizes this tower. It's very interesting even now, you know. You can see some other image, or the Hotel Madımak from Sivas, Turkey, Ferhadiye Mosque, and all that. When I showed it in Munich after 5 times, it also ended up in a collection at Sammlung Goetz's collection in Munich, so it's there now. But this was at Villa Stuck Museum, and I put the ceiling down. So in this one, I scale people down and made it hard to stay in that room. But actually, people did spend more time in this room when it was harder. Okay, I'm going to skip this one. Lucas was there. Can tell you about it later. And this one also I can skip. Nail House project.
But
I can
Nail
also...
project is nice, actually. You have to say a few words.
Actually, I cannot skip this because you did exhibit that one in Tempelhof exhibition,
Yeah.
Living the City. Yes, Nail House project started with this house, which is a house the owner refused to sell, and the government came, and the company, big major company came, bought the entire neighborhood in Istanbul, in Fikirtepe, except this house. And then you had this iconic image of one guy refusing to sell the house, and they start digging in, you know, doing the construction. And there was this like 2-3 years of back and forth, and it became like an icon. But most people even didn't know this is a phenomena exists all around the world, especially in China. Also, this is from Zurich, even in Europe, you know. These are examples from China, and in Seattle also there was
right
one.
now, Ahmet.
Sorry?
The images are stuck a little bit. Now Zurich is coming up.
How is it now?
Now Zurich.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, anyways, I started making these modular sculptures, and kind of, because most houses after a few years they are destroyed, but I think it's important to have the memory of this, and it's modular, so it can grow. This installation I have done so far 5 of those sculptures, and it's open, and so it can be even more examples. Right now, 3 of them are actually long-term loan, and Bremen at Weserburg Museum. This one I'm gonna skip, Lucas. These 2.
I can't see them right now. Somehow I think there's a delay with your slides and when you click.
Yeah, when I click fast because
Oh, yeah,
It's
now we
on
see
your
it.
computer,
Yeah.
Lucas.
you
Say
can
that
can you see it in the room?
There's no delay here.
Okay, great. At least I'm gonna skip all this.
Maybe find like a closing project.
Yeah, I'm going there. Even gonna skip this one. This was for my entry to Berlin with Berlin Biennial in 2008 asphalt project. This one, the closing one, because this is the one Lucas invited me to contribute to the urban intervention book. Usually I start the presentation with this project because this was I try to keep the spirit of this work in my overall practice. It was done very fast. It was no cost. It would take me 10 minutes to turn an Istanbul ordinary parking car into an Istanbul taxi, or an ordinary white car into a police vehicle with cardboard and tape only, cut out cardboard and tape. And when owners approach without the permission, they wouldn't know this is their car at first. So it was, although very cheap material and quickly done, but if you're far enough, you would believe that your car is not there anymore. It's somebody else's car. So that's why the project is called Somebody Else's Car. And this spirit of no need to get an invitation or budget to do a project still is important for me, that even though I did a lot of commissioned site-specific projects over the years, some of them really costly, when I have nothing, I still have everything, because of projects like this. And for me, it's very close and dear to me, this project, Somebody Else's Car. I think this is a good closing one, and we can move to Q&A.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. This would be now a proper applause in the audience if we'd be all sitting in the hall. So thank you so much for that one. Yay, there's
I hear something. Yeah,
that's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Maybe you stop with the screen sharing.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. Okay, then I think I'm here in delay.
I'm happy to see you. I was like talking to myself. If any questions, please feel free.
Yes, and I will maybe start with a few questions just to make it easier for the others to engage. And I have kind of 3 questions, but let's start with a very simple one. The work that you've shown and the work that I've known from you is like so diverse, no? And as in my introduction, it kind of always starts with a conceptual idea. But can you elaborate a little bit more how you go through a process in making a project? So how do you start? Like, is it completely different for each project, or is there some kind of a methodology that you've developed over the years or decades now in practice, how you would approach each single project?
It's more like everyday life problem solving. When you deal with the problem, it looks to you more like a problem first. It comes and you struggle with it. And I call this productive struggle. Instead of thinking the solution is just going to normalize the situation, fix the problem, actually it will make it even better before the problem occurred. So I start with thinking what is needed, what's urgent, and I need to solve this. I need to spend time on this issue, right? I'm not gonna skip it. So I'm gonna either do work on something else, and then still have spare time to fix this problem, or I'm gonna combine it and have the two things done at once. So I don't see art practice as a kind of independent thing from life. And when you combine it with life, you save a lot of time and energy. So when you save this time and energy, there's a lot of magic can happen that meanwhile you do something creative. You also fix not only your own problem, but common problems, the problem of the common. And for me, this has been very interesting. It's also an exhausting thing because if you just like focus on your own things and really keep them separate, it's also a didactic way to deal with it. But what is interesting to me is if it's in the context, it can be seen as art. But if it's not in the art context, it can be seen as just basic everyday life thing. And basic everyday life things can be very political as well. But they don't have to scream that we are political or the topic is political. No. That's also something I strongly like. Everything in its context is socioeconomic context is meaningful, And when you take it out of context, it might look like it's absurd or it's just abstract, but it's not. So I see that only not because I think it that way, but also the impact of it on others, how other people take it as their own thing. I can give you a lot of examples. Yeah, that's how I approach.
And what I've also learned in working with you, both in projects, but also kind of just, we kind of have a very regular exchange on our projects, is you have a lot of principles when working as an artist that I find really, really inspiring. So kind of almost like rules of engagement that you kind of made up for yourself, or actually almost for every project that you engage with. I don't know, you mentioned earlier the Bakunian barricade, for example, where the institution has to make a contract that in the case of a revolution, they have to use it, etc., the artworks as you proposed. But this is almost for every single project, and you're pretty tough on your principles. So when did you, and I really admire that, when did you kind of start coming up with these kind of rules of engagements? And how hard is it for you to actually also pull through with them? Because you often, in our conversation, you often kind of risk even a future collaboration, if it's against the certain principles.
Yes, I think I have a bit too much of principles, but not within the context of my own works, maybe in relation to the art institutions. If I'm successful to transform into a work still more than my own personal political principles, it's healthier for me as well, because when I spend more and more time on the principles rather than the ideas, it's also not fun anymore for me. It needs to be a healthy, nice balance between the two. But I don't wait someone, government or static or an authority to come and tell me what I can do, what I can't do. For me, freedom is so important. I've been dealing with that. But before that, I need to challenge myself too. So I challenge myself with my own principles that if I am true to myself, people will see that. You become like, see-through. People will see that. If you try to hide something, people also see that. I don't see public as not so smart, even with the concept of stupidity. A lot of institutions, a lot of artists, a lot of, they hide their stupidity with the projection towards the public. So many members of public, they think they don't have enough education in arts and culture and all that. and artists must know something, or the institution must know something. So they don't have the ability to have access to that knowledge. This is usually because that artist or that institution have no clue what they are doing. So I have to ask myself, do I have a clue about what I'm doing, first of all? I don't like someone else policing me, but I want to be honest to myself. That's it, you know. You don't need then the policing. It's not about self-policing also. It's about being true to yourself. And once you are like that, you can interact with the rest of the world, rest of the community that way as well, you know. And that also enables a lot of possibilities, like a lot of examples I see around that, you know, from the conception of being a victim, when they are institutionalized, a lot of people institutionalized and have access to those really massive powers, personalities change, you know, suddenly principles that were there not there anymore, you know, they were there because of the misery, or it's just like there's no other option. So let's call it like they are principles. They're not principles. They're just like as soon as there's other conditions or you have the power, you act different way. These are not principles, you know. This is not something that should be policed by a greater power, you know. It's just like the honesty, trust, joy, you know, very basic things. How we can integrate those words, trust or honesty, to the art world, for instance, or art institutions, or to the art we do, you know. I have to ask this question first to myself before I can ask to others, or I can expect audience to do that towards my work, you know. So it's very interesting for me to work with other artists' works, because if they had those principles, or if they mentioned if something very specific was important for them, of course I'm going to respect that. But if they don't identify, I'm going to play with it. And I want people to play with my works as well. I create setups and conditions and situations really challenging to myself, but then it really challenges the whole entire institution. It challenges everybody's mindset. It challenges all together. It becomes a collective challenge. So I don't just commit suicide alone, you know. Let's do it for, like, then it becomes a fun thing instead of a distraction. I don't try to destroy myself. It becomes something productive and positive and joyful. No?
Yeah, nice. Jakob, you had a question.
Yes, so you guys, if you have a question, you can also have the mic, but maybe to break the ice, I would like to, I have a question, and maybe you can get a bit specific. I mean, I don't want you to reveal your cheat code as an artist, as Lucas has once said, but I completely understood what Lucas said in the beginning, in the introduction, about the element of humor and playfulness in your work. And I'm always fascinated when artists come up with ideas that seem kind of obvious. So you think, why hasn't anybody come up with this idea before? It's kind of obvious, but it's also extremely strange and unusual. And my question is, for your piece, where the people had to jump on a trampoline in order to see the painting. How did you come up with that kind of idea? What's your process?
Really nice question, actually. I don't remember exact moment, but it's one of those moments that it starts very simple. And the problem these days, because I start doing all this very layered, research-based, you know, lifetime projects, of course, it endangers the humor part. Humor also comes with simplicity. So with the jump up piece, luckily I was at that moment surrounded with the right people that I could, you know, like tell them my idea first before I make it happen. And also tell myself at the same time that I realized I stopped myself from overthinking. I was like first thinking, let's say, oh, there's earthquake. Okay, there's something dramatic. How I can bring humor to such a traumatic experience to this museum? Because this whole collection based on the solidarity after the earthquake, all these artists donated works. But I don't want to create a double trauma, or, you know, how can I actually even bring any humor in this context. It seemed impossible, right? So I was like first thinking really complicated things like maybe an earthquake room that you can just like construct and people, you know, maybe try to reverse some of the elements in that room, but how can I still make the humor happens there? But eventually the first ideas were so expensive. And then I look at the exhibition and they are like almost no budget, you know, it's like big museum, the country is not there, you know, the whole collection is amazing, but it's all by donations, like nobody paid by those works. So why I should make a work that will cost a lot and I can't even make it here? I have to think simple. So bringing back the simplicity elements helps the humor come up front and I don't complicate the idea. You know, we after many years it becomes more a case for a lot of artists to you start putting too many layers. You don't know where you should stop. And when you don't know when you should stop, the work loses its power along the way and it becomes, you know, less interesting. So I think I stopped in the right place and really thought about, okay, let's go back to the zero budget ideas like the car piece, and I need to make that happen. So I was very happy that upon the collector's piece literally came more or less the same idea with the jump up piece, and I just wanted to have also new works in the show where there was not such any big budget or anything, but those works traveled since then. You know, they were made under the specific condition, but they could fit now all around the world in other contexts, you know, in a bigger show when there's even budget. I'm just like, I just need these 3 trampolines, guys. I don't need more for this project. So, yeah, thinking process comes with the consequences of that moment. And I was very happy that I'm able to do that even after many years, as if I just started making art.
Maybe questions now also for the online audience. I think you're all silenced, Jakob.
I think they can unmute themselves.
Okay, so yes, either in the audience or online. Any questions? No shame in the game. You know the deal here.
There's another question in the room.
Thank you. I had a question because it feels like a lot of the way you work is that you truly find where the idea is complete. That, for example, with the fire trucks and everything, that they actually delivered the books with the actual fire equipment, the ladders and everything. And so, and also how the contracts and things like that, or for example with the salary of the people holding the TVs, how those stipulations you have also form part of the artwork. It's not just something you decide, it's also something that informs the whole piece. If you could just mention something about how you, because you said just now that you want to find the simple in something like this, but then also you find the most furthest you can go with it also in the same way.
Very beautiful question, actually. Yeah, thank you for that. Yes, I don't stop where usually artists do stop, you know. We are not meant to, nobody is expecting you to complete the work. Everyone expects you to symbolically refer what you're referring. And sadly, we call those works political works. You know, just symbolically referring some political topic does not make a work political. But to complete, even undo and complete again is interesting, is important, actually necessary, I think. You know, and it's very hard, but it's not impossible. So I wanted to show some examples of that, you know, especially like, for instance, with the barricade piece is the same. I could have just made the barricade and refer that, oh, there was this idea. It's already a radical thing to convince a museum to put original artworks on top of such conditions that they are even very hypersensitive to hang it on the wall and then hang it on all this like junk. nobody expected it. So I could have been satisfied there, but instead I still put the condition, and people come and say, yeah, of course, this is just a fantasy. No museum will acquire this piece. And, you know, no activist will care that they will go ask the museum later anyway. And this happened more than once already, you know. So there's this challenge of the role of museum. But when you think museums were the places during First World War, Second World War, they had to, even now happening, I'm making another work in Kharkiv, the border of Russia and Ukraine, where the artworks is not safe place, not only for people, but also for the heritage and for the artworks. And we just have those examples all around. Why I'm the one who is just making a fantasy, you know? And after 5 years, you see one institution takes it to that level. You see it's happening, you know, a group of activists take it to that level. So it becomes a collective requirement, need that we all have to discuss and talk about it. It's not only research. Sometimes some researchers comes, I didn't mention about the Silent University's education platform I started 12 years ago. And they come and they are like, I want to write a thesis about your platform. And my answer usually, especially in the beginning, you know, I was saying, it's great, but this is not enough. You have to come, get involved, and donate some hours, time and skill exchange, not just come and observe, especially if somebody is Western, coming from, you know, a white Western person coming and looking at people undocumented teaching. This is awkward, right? We need to change the setup. So that's what happened. Some of those researchers became part of it, and the platform kept growing and still keep growing. So I could have just act the position in the position that I was expected to act, and this becomes quite a challenge. Like if you're a lazy institution or lazy curator, I am a nightmare to you. But if you're a curator or an institution who really wants to have a purpose, I am a gift, you know. But I'm the same person, you know. I just and we are actually a gift to each other. I love working with those institutions. They are there for their purposes, you know. And it's same for the performance piece. It's same for all the other pieces. I do not agree to. I'm asking more questions, no solutions, or you know, I don't want to complete. It's just symbolic kind of thing. It can be, but I'm not interested. For me, it's boring. It's absolutely boring, and it's not fun, you know.
I would have another question, but maybe you guys again online. Anyone daring a question? Then, because the kind of recurring topic in the Juxtaposition series now since 3 years is that of collaboration. And you mentioned that, and you had that beautiful project Happy Together, where you kind of invited your former collaborators as kind of the main, you know, part of the show. But what kind of experiences or do's and don'ts can you share with us with regards to collaboration, in particular in a creative or artistic context?
Can you ask the last part again? Can you tell the last part?
In particular in artistic or creative context, can you share your do's and don'ts on collaboration?
You mean the failures?
Yeah, no, also the successes. So I'm curious about collaboration in general. That's something that I'm trying to foster and push with all the students here. It's a thin line, so to speak. So what's your take? What's your best practice on collaboration?
Yeah, it's working with other artists can be a disaster, because then there's a lot of issues. Like you might start as like very close friends and it might end up like in a court. There's a lot of stories like that. I appreciate artists, like artist couples. They lifetime continue same basic performative collaboration, or you know, any kind of collaboration. Or sometimes some married couples, they divorce, but they're able to continue their artistic position without, you know, without any toxic situation in it. So I appreciate those when that happen, but it's definitely much harder to work with artists. They steal each other's ideas. They don't know who come up with first with the idea. There's always like authorship thing going on, you know. So early on, a lot of people have one or two disappointments, and then they get disappointed of the like, oh, collaboration is a terrible thing. Maybe I should stay away from that. It's actually a beautiful thing. You realize that when you work with art people who are not coming from the art background, they are by default modest, and you have to insist them and tell them. If you work with a lawyer, you have to tell them, no, no, what you're doing is actually creative. You are also the artist. Like I have to like convince them that they are creative. They are like, no, no, I'm just doing the paperwork, or I'm just doing the mixing, I'm just doing the haircut. I'm not doing anything creative here. You had the idea. But no, during that process, the collaboration develops. You give each other ideas, and especially if you come from different background, you don't waste your time about authorship kind of things. And of course, you need to respect that too. You know, if the other person doesn't want even any credit, you should make sure that the credit goes right way, you know. So this is very important practices in collaboration, the intention and continuity, I must say. So I don't cancel the idea of artists working with artists. Definitely there are good examples, but it's not like a must. Artists
Okay.
inviting other artists, also beautiful. Like you have a concept, you invite other artists with existing works, or they develop something for you. This is more close to curatorial practice, but this is also a beautiful thing to do.
Yeah, which you also mentioned before, because there's, I mean, you have a, you said it yourself, you have a curatorial side to your work. No? You're kind of a curatorial artist sometimes as well, but that would fill another whole evening. But if there's not another question from the audience, is there one?
Do you guys have another question? I mean, do we have time for one more question? I'm kind of interested, Lucas, a little bit as a follow-up to your last question about collaboration.
Yeah, please do. And then I come with my closing question.
So maybe to bring out a potential point of your question, Lucas, I'd like to suggest to Ahmet a thought experiment. Let's say you have to decide now whether you will never in your whole lifetime ever collaborate with another artist again and only work by yourself, or that you will always collaborate. But whenever you collaborate, let's just say it's a complete disaster. I mean, maybe some great art comes out. That is still possible. Maybe, you know, always the art is a lot greater. But on a personal level, the collaboration is a disaster. What would you choose?
And that's the thing. I don't like authoritarian situations, so I always look for third, fourth, and the fifth options. Already, I had ideas for those. You know, one, I already had this idea to work with non-artists. You know, that was a solution when I was like at the dead end with collaborating with other artists. But definitely. Yeah, let's say if it's a dystopian world and I have to choose one of those, I would rather not choose either of those. It doesn't sound nice, both of them. It's really terrifying to work, like be a solo artist, and I'm most of the time traveling alone. It looks fun. It is fun, but it's not how it looks from outside. It's really can get boring. You really need to motivate yourself all the time, and this is one of the hardest thing to do. Although I have very high level of motivation, I love art so dedicated way that nothing in the art world made me become like, you know, not interested with that. But of course, when you have a joy of sharing that, it's much more interesting. If let's say I would go for the collaboration still, but I wouldn't call them disasters when they fail. It's beautiful to fail with one idea once, but not repeating the same idea. So if I work on the same project, always change a collaborator, and it fails, that means something wrong with me. But if I always work with a different idea, with a different collaborator, and it fails, that's interesting, that's fun, that's learning process, and that means I keep learning. So I would still go for that if I have to choose, but definitely first I will dig in and come up with other options.
Yeah, I like
Great,
that. That's
amazing,
definitely very much you. Then final question that I ask every guest that we have here, Juxtaposition. Do you have like a final piece of advice that you want to share with our audience?
It's good to it's good to do this online thing time to time. It's really nice. Now I remember how difficult it was. It's really I got conformist after not having no, I didn't have to do this such a long time. I'm glad we were cornered to this situation, Lucas. It's good to do things that you think you don't have to do anymore. Just do it one more time after a long break.
That's a beautiful advice. Ahmet, thank you so much for taking your time. Thank you guys for making it into the Hardenbergschaft, and thank you guys for joining us online. I wish you all a wonderful Monday evening and a great start into the week. And again, virtual applause. Ahmet, thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here today. See you in Berlin soon. Thank you.